And one of the first things you bring forth that's super fruitful, I think, Ken, is this idea of like talking about like the two different kinds of atheism that plays an important role in like setting the stage. So what's going on here with the two kinds of atheism that are addressed?
Yeah, let me make a couple comments about that. When I was first studying philosophy, so again, that would put me back in the late 70s, early 80s, I started reading some of the secular philosophies. I read Antony Flew, I read J.L. Mackie, I read A.J. Ayer, Friedrich Nietzsche, Jean-Paul Sartre. I'm going to call those atheists the old atheists. And I distinguish them from the new atheists. Now, the new atheist, of course, the four horsemen of the new atheism, Christopher Hitchens, Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, Dan Dennett. I would also put people in there, maybe Jerry Coyne, for example, and Peter Atkins at Oxford University. Now, let me contrast those two types of atheists and then offer a paradigm. I think the old atheists, Zach, were more formidable. And the reason I think that is that I think the old atheists tended to stick with arguments. And I think the old atheists, by and large, they had an understanding of Christianity. I think the reason was that they grew up at a time in which Christianity was a dominant religion, and they were, to some degree, kind of forced to take Christianity seriously. So in some ways, they knew more about the Christian faith. For example, Friedrich Nietzsche, his father was a Lutheran minister, and Nietzsche had a real understanding of Christianity. He used to kind of needle Christians and say, if you want me to believe in your Redeemer, why don't you act a little more redeemed? Meaning that he recognized that Christians were imperfect, and compared with Christ, there was quite a contrast. I also think the old atheists are more formidable in this sense. I think that the new atheists spend a lot of their time using sarcasm and ridicule. And I would say that I've discovered that there may be two types of atheists. Now, understand, Zach, that I'm using this as kind of an example. I'm not saying that people fit neatly into these two categories. You can think of it as a paradigm, if you will. I think of two types of atheists. One type of atheist would say something like this. He would say, it may not be a bad idea if God existed. I mean, if there was a God, maybe I would survive the death of my body. Maybe I'd be reunited with my family. Maybe there would be some kind of ultimate meaning to life. The problem is, however, there's no good reason to believe that God exists. There's no rational support for it. Now, another type of atheist would say something like this. Oh, no, there are reasons for God, and there are rational people who believe in God. But I'm sorry, I don't want that God to exist. I'm opposed to that God. Now, again, these are kind of examples. They're paradigms. They're not meant to fit perfect people in. But if I were to name two atheists, I think Graham Oppy might say something like, there's just no evidence for God, even if there are good reasons, even if there would be good things about God's existence. I've heard him say, for example, it's impossible that God would exist. On the other side, I think Thomas Nagel, professor at New York University, a philosopher of mind, I have heard him say, oh, I think that there are reasons to believe in God. And in fact, he says he's impressed with some Christian philosophers, but he says, I don't want that God to exist. I think to some degree, then, if we have those two types of atheists, for one, we need to show them that God is rational. For the other, we need to try to convince them that Christianity is a good thing. That's exactly what I try to do in my book.